Hello and welcome to Rubbin Minds. I hope you're having a great afternoon. My name is Hero Daniels, and I am back as your guest host today. Ebuka Obiu changes senses. Greetings, as always. It's exactly 34 days to Nigeria's elections, and this is the period where politicians are really, really nice, you know? You see them kissing babies. Some of them are dancing buga at rallies. You know, there's this particular politician I heard of in his ward. He actually started washing people's clothes, you know, so that the electorates can vote for him. If you're watching me right now and you're that politician, please make sure you go back and hang those clothes. You understand? But the biggest challenge we have faced this campaign season would be the fact that most political parties and their spokespersons focus on demarketing other candidates as opposed to telling the good people of Nigeria what they can deliver. And that leads me to our discuss today. 2023 campaigns. How can we drive an issue-based campaign? To discuss that with me in the studio, I have a human rights lawyer, Inibehe Effiong. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much. You look very great. I was literally telling you that I think we're twinning today.
That's nice. Thank you.
Except for those three colors on your shirt. So let's get straight into it. 34 days away, we have about 4 major runners. Some would believe 3 major candidates. And we've seen rallies, and we've seen huge number of turnouts in each of these rallies. Do numbers really matter? Numbers at rallies, do they necessarily translate to the actual electorates that would vote?
Well, thank you once again. Within the context of our politics, what we have observed over the years, every election cycle, is that the political actors, the politicians and the political parties, have essentially mastered the act of manipulating political rallies by mobilizing people, inducing people, hiring people, even engaging in interstate mobilization. A situation where someone has a rally in one state and then they will bring people from neighboring states in buses just to give some false impression that, oh, this candidate is popular. But of course, I also concede that there are people who genuinely attend these rallies on account of their belief in the candidacy of the individuals that they are supporting. But by and large, my perception, and this is basically applicable to the 2 major parties in quotes, you know, they have over the years made it clear that the best way to get people to attend rallies is to share money. And we see videos of this on social media, where people, after they have attended these rallies, they begin to quarrel, they begin to fight, they begin to argue that, oh, they have not been given what they were promised. So when you see thousands of people being galvanized, being brought into you know, a stadium, a field, and so on, you begin to wonder whether this is really an indication of popularity or evidence of the monetization of our electoral process.
Okay. I think it's the later. I really think it's the later. Let's now talk about the candidates and how they have adopted an approach. You know, close to the elections now, we're seeing that they're focusing more on attacking each other as opposed to really telling the Nigerian people what they can deliver if elected. Why do you think that is? And is that effective? Demarketing another candidate, do you think it does something to the electorate that makes them favor the person that demarketed the other candidate?
To some extent, it has always been part of politics. I don't see that as evil in itself, depending on what is being deployed in the marketing. Even in the US, in the UK, and politics all across the globe, you would see candidates and parties try to demarket the other by saying why the other person is better. You would see Trump throwing tantrums all over the place, attacking Joe Biden. You will also see, you know, Biden trying to demarket Trump. We saw that during the election between President Trump and the Secretary Hillary Clinton. This is something that is applicable all over the world. But in the Nigerian case, what is tragic is that the greater emphasis seems to be on the personality calls. There seems to be a concerted effort to focus on the individuals. And what is being used to focus on the individuals is not basically things that should matter to the electorate. You see people resort to say, oh, this candidate is from a certain tribe, this candidate belongs to this religion, this candidate is against our religion. And they do this every election cycle because these sentiments have the capability of depriving the average voter of the capacity to independently assess the electoral value, the electoral worth, and of course the manifesto of the parties.
So you agree that is effective?
Relatively, but really what should count, given where we are as a country, should be policies argument, should be debate about issues that are plaguing the country. I was just telling you before we came on the show, your producer, the station with the traffic, that even to get to this station, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway basically is on lockdown. Why? Because fuel is not available. And this is 7 to 8 years into a government that had told us that subsidy was a scam. This is what the candidates, this is what the parties should be having conversation about. Why is it that today basic commodities are not affordable? Look at the rate of inflation, 21%. Look at the rate of, unemployment. Nothing to write home about, 32%. Youth unemployment is over 40%. And you have that in a country that is so blessed with resources. So what we expect is debate. Let the candidates come out and speak to the media. And I find it particularly, intolerable that you will even have a candidate like Asiwaju, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is a bit allergic to talking to the press. Nigerians have the right to hear from this candidate. Nigerians have the right to interrogate them, their antecedents, their background, their educational qualifications, where they come from, what they are bringing to the table. This is the time for us to speak to them. Whether it is Atiku, whether it is Sowore, whether it is Peter Obi, and all the candidates, they must come out, including Kwankwaso, they must come out and tell Nigerians in very clear language. I know Sowore has done that remarkably. Peter Obi has also, must also give it to him, has been driving conversation about policy. Yeah. But between the other two candidates, I can't really say that they have done well in terms of driving home the message of what they want to do.
So you've stated the obvious problems, you've stated the obvious challenges. We know what these candidates are supposed to do. Just like you mentioned, the major political parties, the APC and the PDP, at least the ones that we've known for over the years, they've had power, The new parts, not new parties, the emerging parties or the parties that blew up recently because of the individual that got into it, like Labour Party and the NNPP, they've not had a chance, at having power. Right? So now that we've identified the problem, how do you think we can change the narrative and sort of, for lack of a better word, sort of force these the PDP and the APC and their candidates and every other candidate that is also demarketing other people to focus on the issues? Because also, you just made mention of the media, right? Recently on social media, you see that such strategies travel faster. Way faster. Now, even if it's not the candidates in question, their spokesperson. There was a particular video we saw, the PDP spokesperson, they remixed his video with the APC spokesperson, and they were just attacking each other, right? And such video went viral, and it's having so much impact as opposed to a video that is issue-based. So when there's a video that is issue-based, why don't people share it as much? So as much as we're focusing on the individuals and the political parties, how do you think the Nigerian people can swap that narrative and demand for better content?
It is a vital point that you have raised, but to underscore that point, you must also admit that in our politics, ideology has little or no place, right? Because when we say what are the issues, the policies, let's have arguments about policies and issues, there has to be a foundation, there has to be a basis, which is that these political parties are ideologically driven. In the US, for example, you would have the Democrats, you have the Republican Party arguing about same-sex marriage, arguing about access to voter, the ability to vote easily, arguing about immigration, arguing about inflation, arguing about loans, and so on. Because these parties are ideologically different in terms of what they represent for the various issues. But in Nigeria today, at least we have seen PDP in government, we have seen APC in government. Can we say that there is a distinction between these two parties regarding employment, regarding education, regarding health policy, regarding national integration? Even though, of course, in reality, one can see some difference in the way the Buhari government has approached the issue of national integration. But the way forward, it is for Nigerians and the media, the civil society, to insist that these candidates should address the issues that affect the electorate. But at an institutional level, I am advocating for the enactment of the Presidential Debate Act. We need a law in Nigeria, a Presidential Debate Act, that will make it compulsory for every candidate seeking to be the president of this country to participate in the debate, and for that candidate to be interrogated regarding what he wants to do. We cannot allow these people to continue to obscure the conversation, to continue to divert attention from the real issues. Look at what is happening on social media. You will now see that once the election period is closed, people begin to wipe up sentiment. They begin to pinch one tribe against the other. And this is divide and rule tactics, is what the politicians have used to hold us down. Why are we not talking about the high level of out-of-school children, the Amajiri system in the north? Why are we not addressing the issue of insecurity the way we are supposed to address it? Look at the killings in the country. There's a report that shows that between when this government came to office and now, over 50,000 Nigerians have been slaughtered. This is a report commissioned by a body funded by the US government. So it's a credible organization. Why are we not having that conversation? Why are the candidates not telling us in clear language what they would do differently regarding Boko Haram? If there is a government that has given the parties the leverage, the opportunity to clearly articulate what they are supposed to do, it is a Buhari government. Because as of today, even to acquire, to buy egg, it's difficult. Gari is difficult. Rice is difficult. Basic commodities are not available. These are the issues that affect the common people. Look at fuel subsidy. Look at fuel subsidy. The candidates some of them have said, well, they will abolish subsidy. There will be no subsidy. But who is telling us what will be done with the money stolen over the years in the name of subsidy? Right. Because even the president, Buhari, told us that subsidy was a fraud. 8 years later, they are still paying billions in subsidy. Trillions, actually. Trillions in subsidy. Without accountability, Nigerians cannot have fuel. These are the issues that political parties should speak to. How come that trillions have been dissipated for subsidy and we cannot see fuel to buy? So you made a valid point. You said something that there should be some sort of presidential act or some presidential sort of debate act. Presidential debate act. And it's funny, as much as that is very idealistic, these are the same people that came in through a particular process, and you expect them to come together and make a law. Obviously, you know that very recently there were some electoral acts that were passed. I'm sure that if we check, there should be something, or there should be a law, or there should be a body that is in charge of sort of serving as a control to such acts by candidates, be it presidential or otherwise, right? There should be a body, or there should be a law currently existing. I think the issue would be how it's implemented, because I'm sure that if you look at some of these speeches critically, you can even categorize some of them as hate speeches, and I'm sure there are laws against such speeches. So why is it that nobody has been held accountable so far so good during this campaign season? The truth of the matter is that and let me start by stating clearly that we have what is called the Nigerian Election Debate Group. As a matter of fact, during the last presidential election, I had to file a case in court at the FCTI court against this body over the exclusion of Showore from the presidential debates last year. So I know that there is a body, but that body doesn't have legislative backing. It doesn't have the force of law. They cannot compel anybody. And why are we not having debate this year? Because the candidates, the elephants in the room, in quotes, they have refused to participate in the debates. Even some, candidates are even quarreling with media houses for trying to invite them. So we need a law in place. There is no argument about that. Let a member of the National Assembly introduce the bill. Let us know who is voting for it and who is voting against it. It will be documented in history. But I do agree that if you look at our Electoral Act, if you look at the Constitution, if you look at the INEC guidelines, there are regulations, there are policies that have been put in place to checkmate campaign financing, to checkmate even the messaging, political messaging. If you look at under the Electoral Act, it is an offense to campaign on the basis of ethnicity, on the basis of religion. But we see candidates do this every single day. We see political parties and their supporters engage in this blatant attempt to divide the population without consequences. Again, that brings me to the issue of the Electoral Offences Tribunal. We need to ensure that the Electoral Offences Tribunal bill is passed. The bill is currently, lying wallow in the House of Reps. The Speaker has not done anything about it. We need an Electoral Offences Commission. Because if that commission is in existence, it will have the obligation under the law to checkmate the activities of candidates, the activities of political parties, prosecute those who violate these laws, hold them accountable for the betterment of the Nigerian people. But today, I can tell you authoritatively that INEC lacks the institutional mechanism, the institutional capacity to checkmate what political parties are doing. INEC is already overwhelmed. Look at even pre-election matters that INEC has to deal with, monitoring the primaries of political parties. They still have to be responsible for the National Register of Voters. They have to register people. Look at how INEC has failed in distribution of PVCs. So when we keep there's so much responsibility on INEC.
Yes.
Which is why we need an independent body to ensure that regarding electoral offenses, those who violate our law, whether in terms of campaign, whether in terms of election financing, which nobody is talking about. Nobody is talking about election financing. That there is a law in Nigeria, the Electoral Act, that has stipulated the maximum that candidates and parties are supposed to spend, where candidates are supposed to get funds from. Who is monitoring these things? And these are the issues that matter. But my position is for the Nigerian people, particularly the youths. If you look at the turnout, the percentage of registration.
More youths.
More youths. We have
so how do we ensure that? Because it's one thing to have a lot of youths. It's another thing to make sure that the youths actually come out. It's another thing to give them a level of clarity, right? Because with everything that is going on, we lack issue-based campaign. A lot of people will be moved with sentiments, be it religion, be it ethnicity. So how do we provide clarity to the Nigerian youths, not just in fact, the entire Nigerian electorate? How do you think clarity can be provided, even if those candidates are not campaigning based on issues? How can the electorate ourselves, because we're all suffering, we're all suffering in this country altogether. So how can we provide clarity to the electorates to make sure that they end up voting for somebody that would eventually take us out of this mess?
I think it was Winston Churchill who said that a nation without a conscience is a nation without a soul, and that a nation without a soul cannot survive. The conscience of the Nigerian nation is being put to test in this election. If you look at where we have come from in the last 7 years, and even before now, before this government, the penury, the anguish, the suffering that the Nigerian people have had to endure, that the youths have had to endure. Students were at homes for over 8 months on account of ASUU strike. Market women are suffering all over the country. Traders are suffering all over the country. So people must realize that this is one election of a lifetime. This is one election of a lifetime. If we do not get it right now, when are we going to get it right? It is for us as citizens to begin to take our civic responsibility serious. Because at the end of the day, we can chastise, we can criticize our leaders from now till eternity. If the citizens do not exercise the power that they have to vote the right people into positions of power, we will continue to suffer.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us, Young, and do have a lovely day. We'll be right back on Rubbin Minds. And just give me some reaction. Welcome back. This is Rubbin Minds. Before we went on the break, we were talking about the 2023 elections, how politicians can concentrate on issues as opposed to demarketing each other. And now we want to move over to education. In the words of Nelson Mandela, education is that's key to unlocking the potentials of every nation. It is so sad that years and years on, we still don't have it right in this country when it comes to education. That leads me to our discuss today, which is education, fixing a decaying industry. And we're trying to look at what will happen 2023 to 2027. With me in the studio to discuss this is an educationist, Okeyifu Ajayi. How you doing?
I'm doing very well.
It's good to have you.
Yeah, same here. Thanks for
All right, so Nigeria is infamous for having the highest number of out-of-school children. And every single year, the national allocation is always very infinitesimal, and you can barely do anything. We're in and out of ASUU strike every now and then. It's just really tiring. The public educational system has gotten so weak that, you know, the private sector seems to be carrying that weight. And no matter how much we want to lay all of that responsibility on the private sector, there's still a lot of people that require education and don't have the funds to access quality education via the private schools, right? So I think where did we even get it wrong in the first place? At what point in our national history did we go wrong? Because it looks like education was way better in the 70s as opposed to now. So when did we get it wrong?
To be honest, that's not a question that I have an answer to, where did we get it wrong? Because I think it's honestly a collection of several different things that have just sort of come to a head, and then we're suddenly begin to see the decay, right? That's what I would say it has happened here. But why are we getting it wrong? I believe that it is our value systems. We're not paying attention to the right things. We're not focusing on the right things. I'm not just in the education sector, but, I'm focusing on the education sector. And the minute we understand that the value systems that we carry are not going to serve us, that's the minute we make a switch, right? When you started, you said something about the fact that year in, year out, we're seeing that the budget allocation, which is the financial allocation to education, is reducing. It's not even so much the reduction, but the spend, right? What is the implementation strategy? Can we see what is even being done with that tiny allocation to the education sector? So those are sort of questions that I would, say we need to find answers to. But if we get the value system right, if we get the purpose right, if we get the foundational principles that our educational system rides on right, I do believe that then we can begin to sort of gather the ashes, right. And then build something out of it.
Okay, that sounds very profound. Why is it that we haven't implemented some of, all of the policies, all of the monies being invested? So is it necessarily the inability of the government to provide adequate funds, or the inability of the governing bodies of our educational system to actually utilize those funds? So are we dealing with corruption on both sides, or we're dealing with corruption on just one side?
That's another really great question, Hero. You seem to have quite a number of really good questions today. The reality is, perhaps we can say that it's a mix of several different things. So when you talk, these questions, of course, are fully directed to the public sector. And when you look at the educational and budgetary allocations in the public sector, they're not data-driven, right? And so when things are not data-driven, the political will to then sort of put your money where your mouth is supposed to be is difficult, because you really do not have an implementation plan, right? It is said, 11.xyz% has been allocated to education, but what exactly are the implementation? What is supposed to be done? One, in terms of infrastructure, what is meant to be done in terms of technology upliftment, what is meant to be done in terms of curriculum upgrades, what is meant to be done in the places of teacher education, what is meant to be done in terms of skilling, right? And we talk about education, and a lot of the times our focus sort of is on just the formal sector. We do have the informal sector, which I believe carries a lot of weight in this country. We need to honestly begin to move into that space where education is community driven. What is the community saying about education? What are the needs of the community? If we don't get to that point, we would always have a problem with allocation, because we're not really meeting, or maybe let me not say we would have a problem with allocation. We would have a problem with people like you and I seeing the effects of allocation, because it's not solving the problems that we have. So are we sure we're allocating it? So this sort of questions will always continue to come up. Not that I'm saying it is being allocated and implemented appropriately. I'm just saying we need to get to that place where we begin to sort of shift our mindsets from what education currently is to what it should be within the Nigerian context. Then we will begin to see changes. Okay.
You made a valid point, and then it looked like we've been concentrating on public education. I do have, I wouldn't use the word a problem, but I feel like the private education is not necessarily well regulated, right? Even obviously we've given up on the public education already, right? So what do you think is being done in terms of teacher training? Most teachers have been in public service, and even some teachers in private schools, and they haven't had any training for a very long time. You see people spending 20 years in service, and there is no retraining, there is no updating, right? So how do we troubleshoot this? Because what that does is it churns out a lot of unemployable people, a lot of people that they're not up to the task, they're not really well knowledgeable, and they can't even just think. It's like in school, when we're being taught mathematics, we're just being taught formulas as opposed to how to think mathematically.
Yeah.
So how do we move from that? How do we ensure that the private education is regulated, also the public education, the teachers that have been there for a very long time are retrained and updated?
Again, fantastic conversation that you have just started. The first thing is regulation, right? What are we regulating? Are we regulating the standards? Are we regulating academia? Are we regulating the informal sector? What exactly is it that we're regulating? We sort of need to have a blueprint for that. But then if we say to ourselves, let us regulate, like you just said, teacher education. Again, the teacher education, what is happening within the teacher education circles, is that what should be happening, right? Who are these teachers? What they're doing in the classroom, or what they're being taught to do in the classroom, does it truly have an effect for the students that we have today and the workplace, what the workplace needs today? The answer is no. Because again, if there's no curriculum interventions, if there are no curriculum updates, which curriculum is the one they gave us when they colonized? When they colonized. Exactly. That's what they gave us. That's what, honestly, we're still using right now. But it's no longer serving. The reason why it was brought at that time was because the colonial masters needed some form of industrialization. Why? So that we can take the raw materials in a state that they could export it, in a sense. Of course, that's not holistically what it was about. But the reality is that we haven't then looked at it and brought it within our community to say, what do we need? When we do, we'll understand that in some schools, we should be teaching in Pidgin English, because that is what the community was raised with. That is their lingua franca. That is their mother tongue. When we begin to say, what is it that this community A needs, we understand that, most people here are farmers. For example, go to the north. Why are we learning 1, 2, 3 and ABCs? Should we learn it? Yes, because that is sort of the basic literacy levels that we should be. Again, we should standardize that. Public and private should be the same. Because I have money for a private school and my sister doesn't have money for a private school, doesn't necessarily mean that our children shouldn't be at par when they come out. It shouldn't be that way. So when we sort of standardize when we sort of agree on what the standards should be, we then look into teacher education and again, data driven, and say, what is it that we're not teaching these teachers? At that point in time, Hero, what you'll begin to see is that we'll begin to fine-tune the systems to respond to the needs of the society. Once we do that, what is happening in the schools, in the classrooms, will begin to align, because the children that are coming out from primary school into secondary school, into the university, and finally into the world, would have what it takes to actually be self-serving members of the community.
Right.
I see you're asking me to stop.
No, not at all. I'm actually enjoying the conversation. And, when you said that sometimes education should be in pidgin language, should be in local languages, I just thought of China. You won't go to China and they're, teaching them in English. So it's easier for them to sort of grasp
it.
Because the first hurdle will be to even understand the English in the first place. So how do you teach somebody about a subject when the person does not fully understand English? I understand. So finally, on the final note, what do you think can be done about the future teachers? I don't understand why the cutoff mark or the pass mark to study education is way lower than almost every other course. So if you're entrusting the future of young Nigerians into these people, right, into their hands, and they don't even necessarily need to score so high in their exams for them to get into the university or college of education or whatever, to study how to teach other people. So I think that's a fundamental problem. What do you think we can do about that in the final notes? Yeah,
something that we really quickly need to be able to do about that is to say to ourselves, who do we want to attract into the education sector? Right now, nobody wants to be in the education sector because it is not an attractive space to be in. To be a teacher, to be honest, is not attractive. Yeah. When you make that attractive, you would attract the right set of people. When you do, some of these concerns would sort of resolve themselves. So we need to make the situation within the sector attractive, raise those marks, and then would attract the right people into the sector. That's how I would put it.
All right. Thank you so very much. It's been a very refreshing conversation, and I like the angle at which this conversation has gone, because usually when we have conversations like this, we just focus on the government and their inability to sort of implement and make the lives of young Nigerians and Nigerians in general better. So once again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Hero. Thank
and
you so
do
much.
have a lovely day.
You too.
Welcome back. This is Rubbin Minds. Yes, we've talked about elections, we've talked about education, and now it is time for some entertainment. You'd agree with me that that is one of the thriving industries in the country. It has contributed greatly to our gross domestic products. Everywhere you go globally, Nigerians are recognized for their entertainment, be it in music, be it in film, or other creative arts. Today we will be talking to a very important personality. He is one of the topmost Nollywood actors. He's a television, he's a media personality, Chidi Mokeme. But before we have Chidi, we'd like to just give a big kudos to the Nollywood industry. We have seen the evolution. We have seen how Nollywood has changed. You know, some comedians would make jokes and say that when you watch Nollywood movies, you see that somebody dies and their spirit resurrects, only for their spirit to want to cross the main road and their spirit to have to look left or look right before the cross. And all of those jokes, and those are targeted to us saying that our industry needs to standardize. But have you seen the recent Nollywood movies? It is mind-blowing. The streamers have gotten into Nigeria, from the Netflixes to Amazon Primes down to other streaming giants, and I think that has sort of increased the budget for Nollywood, and we're having much better productions. If you look at the quality of the cameras, if you look at the quality of the talent, scriptwriters are getting much more money. So you see that scriptwriters now take their time to sort of write scripts, as opposed to when it wasn't profitable. So, without further ado, I'd like to say hello to Chidi Mokeme. Hello.
Hi, hey.
Man,
How
good to see you.
Man?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good to see you too.
I personally regard you as a living legend. Most of my childhood was formed, you know, with images of Chidi as the Nollywood bad boy, and many years later, you're still killing it in the game. How do you do it? How have you remained relevant over the years?
I think it's just taking my job seriously. That's it, you know. I take this as a job. This is a job. This is all I've done, you know, all of my life, you know. So it's the only thing I've done. I've never really gone out and worked in any office or anyone's office apart from mine. So I take my job seriously. So when I wake up in the morning and I go to work, I know that I'm going to work, you know. So that's it. It's just commitment to the craft.
Amazing, amazing. Everybody is talking about you. You are one of the topics trending on Twitter, and that's a result of one of your recent projects, Shantytown. But before that, I think last year you had The Therapist. But it looked like you took such a long break from the industry. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you take a break? That's the first question. Or people were not just seeing your movies? What exactly happened? Because for a long time, Chidi was off our screens. You were off.
You know, okay. So this is Rubbin Minds. So I'm going to be giving you all the scoop. You know, first and foremost, you are the first to see this look. Nobody else. I'm on location, non-disclosure. Nobody was supposed to see this. But look at me, live on Rubbin Minds, you know. So you are the first to see this look on my new project, you know. So, yeah, I've been off the scene for a while. You know, I was actually off the scene for a while after we did the promotional tour for 76, you know, and we went to the Toronto International Film Festival. I'll say something, you know, that I haven't actually said anywhere else, because after that, we were preparing to go on the trip to UK for the British International Film Festival. You know, I came down with something called Bell's palsy. So if you know Bell's palsy, it was the first time I was hearing it. Bell's palsy is something that it comes like a stroke, and it sort of affects one side of your face and sort of gives you a droop, you know? And this was something that the doctors said was incurable. They had no cure because they didn't know what causes it, so they didn't know how to treat it, you know? So for an actor, if you come down with something that affects your face, you can imagine what I must have been going through at the time. I thought it was something I could move around with. I tried to come for the Lagos premiere of 76 at the time, but the attention was sort of focused on the face rather than the premiere and the things that were happening at the time. So I knew that, no, it wasn't something that I could work with. So I said, okay,
Wow.
I'll take off time. Yeah, I'll take time off, to try and go sort out that problem that needed my face to be in top shape, So in the meantime, I just focused on doing my other business. And one of the other businesses that I do is seasonal lightings and decor. So I do Christmas lightings, commercial quantity Christmas lightings. We work for state governments, around the country, lighting up the states for seasonal purposes.
Yeah.
So that didn't really need my face to be showing. So I just focused my attention on that while I was trying to get myself back. So it took a while, to get that back. Yeah.
So Chidi, first of all, I'd like to say that we're very sorry that you had to go through all that. I can only imagine what it felt like, because this is literally your whole world coming down. Because if as an actor you do not have your face in the right shape, you cannot work. How did that affect you mentally, and how were you able?
You see what happened to Justin Bieber right in the middle of his tour.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it right there. Yeah, he had to cancel everything because you can't perform with your face drooping.
So how did you navigate mentally? Because it must have been very depressing, knowing that you cannot do the things that you really love to do.
Yeah, fortunately for me, and I must say this, fortunately for me, I think I consider myself as someone who has always been mentally strong, So, I mean, I'm a self-proclaimed mathematician, So I'm a student of life. I take life in my strides, So I just knew that all I had to do was just keep my focus on God, who has been the one doing everything. Even that you're alive at all, is because God is with you and his hands are upon you. So I just kept my focus on God. I said, man, I've done this all my life. If this is what that you chose for me to do, and my will and your will are aligned, then I leave it to you. You can run it when you want. In the meantime, let me go about building some other businesses.
Wow. Wow, that's truly incredible, and I'm happy that you're back to acting, and I'm happy that you're strong, you're working, and you're happy. 2022 was a very tough year for you. We received all of the sad news via social media. You lost loved ones last year, your sister and your cousin. You were also attacked, last year. How did you move past all that?
Oh, I think for me, it's always, there's a popular saying that's been going around is that the tree with ripe fruits, is the one that gets stones thrown at it. So this is me. Every time I get into that mode where it looks like things are just not going the way you planned consistently for a period of time, I know that, oh, this is the devil trying to distract you from that big plan that God is cooking up, So as usual, I just take things in my stride. For instance, the day I had the incident on the road where, they tried to, I don't know if they tried to rob me or they tried to, where I was ambushed. My first instinct, really, was to ram into those guys, back up, smash their car, get my jack, and just really show them who runs the town. But the me in me said, oh boy, you're going to the airport. What's your problem? Go and catch a flight and get this over with, man. How much is it going to cost to fix this damage? You know, let these guys go. And I did not even say a word to them. I just kept going. I just kept going, Because, man, one life to live, brother. One life to live.
100%, 100%. I totally agree with you, and I'm glad that you were able to navigate through those challenges. And just like you said, the biggest temptations will always come before the big blessing. And what a blessing
That's
2023
right.
has been already for you. Now, not a lot of people have had the privilege of making a comeback and making a good comeback. We appreciate our legends. We appreciate every single
Yeah.
person that has sort of imputed into Nollywood, even when Nollywood was not profitable. However, you know, some of these our legends, some of them try to come back into the scene, and there seems to be a disconnect. But with your recent projects, everybody felt or feel like it's a breath of fresh air. We've known you all our lives, yet every single time we watch you, you're always delivering. So how does it feel being appreciated to the quantum you're being appreciated now in 2023?
Honestly, as far as the reception for Shantytown is concerned, it's been overwhelming, you know, in a good kind of way. It's been humbling, you know, and coming from where I'm coming from in the last 4 or 5 years, you know, it's really something. I'm still trying to take it in, you know, but you remember the last 4 or 5 years, like I said, there's been a hunger because I could see things happening and there was nothing I could do about it. You know, so my conversation with God was that, God, if you try me and put me in front of a screen, I will show you that the talent that you put inside of me, I will use it and bless you. Just try me now and put me in front of a screen. You know, so that was my constant conversation with God. I said, there are things happening. I could see the inflow, all of the streamers coming in. You know, Netflix was taking a good turn, you know, and I'm like, man, we built this. I've done nothing else for 30 plus years. And this is the time, you know, to get your flowers. I said, God,
Right.
try me. Try me. Let me give you glory. And this is God's glory right here. Taking me from not thinking I could be able to get in front of a camera.
Wow. Wow. It is truly overwhelming. I really did not even know all of the things that was happening in the life of Chidi Mokeme, and I'm sure that a lot of Nigerians are also shocked about this revelation. And a wise man would say that in a world when you can be anything, just choose to be kind, because you do not know what people are going through. And there's this trend now on social media. It's so easy to think that celebrity life is perfect, you know, and your celebrities are living the most perfect lives, and we have every right to troll them. We have every right to talk about what they wear, talk about how they behave, talk about what they eat, just talk about their lives, you know. We have a right to troll them on Twitter, but who knew? Who knew that he was going through that? And he never exposed it to the public, you know. Chidi lives such a private life, and I think it's really, really admirable. So to you watching this, just make sure that in everything you do, just show a little kindness. Show a little kindness. So Chidi, finally, there's a move happening in Nollywood. Like you said, the streamers are back in, there is more money, there is more funding. How do you think that the industry can sort of capitalize and maximize all of these new avenues of making money?
First and foremost, I mean, drum rolls for Nollywood, you know. This was totally built on the back of private equity and private sweat. You know, people just stayed in, dug in with no government support by way of policy or otherwise. So the fact that the world is taking notice and scrambling, you know, to come into Nollywood is a big deal. It's a big step, you know. And I said to somebody yesterday, I said, mark my words, you know. I said to somebody, I said, mark my words. I said, the Nollywood film industry is going to recolonize the world the way the Afrobeat industry of our Nigerian music industry is recolonizing the world. All we need is for them to take notice. Once they take notice, they can't stop biting, you know? It's a black thing. Once you go black, you can't go back. So for Nollywood, for Nollywood, this is a giant step. you know, and Hollywood, the streamers from wherever, by whatever name that they are called, they will begin to recognize.
Right. And I hope they don't shortchange us, because there's a conversation around how the Nollywood industry is not receiving as much as their counterparts in Kenya, their counterparts in South Africa, and their counterparts globally. If you check most of these streamers, their most watched movies or series are not even American, because most of the streamers are of American origin. The company is based in America. But if you check their most streamed movies, it's either Korean. We've seen that with Squid Game and the likes of it. So, Chidi, how can we ensure that Nollywood safeguards itself from exploitation?
And Nollywood really, and nobody's thinking about it now. I had this conversation with a few of my colleagues. Nobody's thinking about it now. You know, it's like they're dangling the carrot right now in front of us. But we need to look beyond the carrot at the stick, and who's holding the stick, and what the real intent and intention is. You know, because it's so easy to get carried away with the hype, until these people come and, you know, just suck everything out, and then we're still back to where we started. So, first and foremost, it's time for all of the guilds to start to prepare their structures. All of the guilds need to start preparing structures. Make sure that you have a solid professional structure on ground, so that the people looking from outside in, when they decide, oh, it's going to be too expensive to take so-so person that come and shoot here, why don't we now base these productions off of Nigeria? They will find the right kind of talent and the right kind of crew to give them the professional work that they deserve. That's what's been holding us back. One of the things that's been holding us back, we find that we go to South Africa all the time to shoot musical videos, to shoot commercials. From Nigeria, we go to South Africa to shoot commercials. Why? There's only one reason for that. People don't trust the quality of the talent. They don't trust the quality of the technical expertise that is on ground. But we can see Shantytown is a game changer. We can see that all of the talent that we want, the expertise that we want, is all available. It all can be done here. Now, let us have proper structures and begin to see what we do as a business. As a business. Most thespians, most practitioners, most artists are carried away all of the time with the artist side of the business. But there's a reason why this is called show business. There is a show. The show is addictive. The show is like a drug. But if you don't combine the show with the business, you just be running around in circles like you're on a treadmill, you know, busy in motion but going nowhere. So, Nollywood, we need structures. We need the government to recognize what is happening, and rather than stifle the growth and the creativity of the industry, begin to create partnerships. Let us sign movie cooperation agreements with different countries. You know, Nigeria doesn't have any agreements with any country as far as movie cooperation is concerned. Meanwhile, Ghana here, smaller countries around Africa, you know, have partnerships signed that make it possible for people from France, from Paris, from America, from China to go into these places and shoot and bring in resources into the local economy. Nigeria doesn't have any such trade partnerships as far as movies is concerned. We need those kind of policies to strengthen the structure of the industry, so that when people come from outside, they will meet a structure. It becomes difficult to take advantage of us. Otherwise, they will just do divide and rule.
Right. Chidi, this has been such a profound conversation, and I really appreciate you for coming on. But before I let you go, what should we look forward to? You know, what's the next 5-10 years going to look like? Because first of all, you're 50. I'm amazed. You don't look 50. You've just defied the laws of nature, and you look as young as ever. So what is the next 5-10 years going to look like for you?
The next 5-10 years. Something that I've learned, you know, if there's something that I've learned in this industry, you see how things change per second, billion things change per second. I've been here, 30 plus years. And in all of that time, the only thing that I knew for sure is that we were determined to grow this industry. I was determined to follow it to anywhere that was going to do whatever it takes to grow it. But what pattern that growth will take, what path it will take, how it will get there, nobody knew any of that. So from that point of view, it's difficult to make any kind of predictions. In fact, I'm hearing now that one day now they will have avatars playing Chidimokeme.
So you better get those coins as soon as you can. Right. Thank you so very much.
The one thing that is guaranteed, though, is that after Shantytown, trust me, the scripts, the productions, the level of productions that you will be getting out of Nollywood will never be the same again.
And I believe you're 100%. Thank you so much for all you do. Keep being you, keep pushing those boundaries. And thank you so much for opening up about the condition that kept you down. And I'm so happy that you overcame that and you're stronger and better. Have a blast, Chidi.
Thank you. Thank you to all of my fans out there. I love you guys. Go and watch Shantytown. I'm streaming only on Netflix.
All right, you have to. I'll send you my invoice so you pay for that, but it's fine.
That's okay. Have your peeps talk to my peeps.
All right. Thank you very much, Chidi. What a wholesome conversation this has been. We've talked about the Nigerian elections, we've talked about education, and of course, Nollywood. My name is Hero Daniels. Until I catch you next time, remember, in a world where you can be anything, choose to be kind.
Come on, get with you. Don't just stand